Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Gains Podcast. My name is Clark Gaines, and I want to thank you so much for joining me on episode number 4. Last week, we talked about the power of saying no, why you should do it, why it's important, and ultimately, we came to this conclusion that when you say no, you actually free up so much more time for yourself. So the question then becomes, well, what do I do with all this extra time? I know for me personally, I tend to replace it with more noise and more distractions, more Instagram and Facebook, more TV, more video games. But what I've come to realize in my life is I don't want that to be the norm and the things that I default to any longer. So this week, I want to challenge you and I to do something that's even more difficult than just saying no. This week, I want us to start seeking solitude. When I was little, I used to do this funny thing on long car rides. I would take my middle finger and my pointer finger, and I would make a little stick man. And this man would jump over cars, and he would jump over trees, and he would fly in the sky and whatnot. And it was a lot of fun. And it would keep me entertained for like 2 minutes, and I was on to something else. But that's something I used to do because oftentimes I would get bored. We didn't have screens back then. Right? Like we didn't have iPads, we didn't have iPhones to play and to text on. So we had to get creative, and that was one of the ways that I was creative, I guess, was a little stick man, right? My point in saying all this was I was bored. And I think a lot of people associate boredom with solitude. But I'm here to tell you that there is a big difference between those two terms. You see, boredom is almost always accidental, okay? Nothing is stimulating you, so your minds kind of scramble to fill the void. The definition of boredom is feeling weary because one is unoccupied or lacks interest in one's current activity. So going back to the example of the long car ride and the little stick man, I was feeling weary, tired, because I was unoccupied, right? Like I wasn't the one driving, I wasn't navigating, I was just sitting in the back seat. And I lacked interest in my current activity, which was, once again, sitting in the back seat. I did have an interest in getting to our destination, which was oftentimes Disney World, but that was after a grueling 8-hour drive. Solitude is different though, because it's intentional, okay? It's a choice. It's saying, I'm going to step away on purpose. I have a goal, an intent to, maybe it's to think or to process information or to get clarity and reflect. It's important that we don't just fill our minds and our time with any stimulus that comes our way when we do have this empty space in our schedules. We want space to get clear on what we want in life and who we want to become. Another important differentiation to make is between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is painful. Okay, it's a disconnect from people, from things. The actual definition of loneliness is sadness because one has no friends or company. That's a pretty depressing way to look at it, but it's true. Loneliness is painful. Solitude, though, is simply the state or situation of being alone. So hopefully you can kind of see the difference there, and I want to make that distinction before we really jump into this. Solitude also is about making sure you're actually grounded so that when you return to your day-to-day, you can serve people, you can serve yourself in the best way possible. Speaking of day-to-day, one of the smallest ways I practice solitude is by going on walks. I have this 3-mile route I take oftentimes, and I go to downtown Livonia, and I'll go across the railroad tracks, and I'll see people at Gumlog Brewery, and it's a great route. I take Stella with me, and I take my phone. Now, the only reason I take my phone is because I'm counting my steps, right? That's the way that I track my steps. But I'm not listening to any music, no podcasts, nothing. No headphones. I literally just walk. And it's so relaxing. It is so rejuvenating after a long week to go on this walk. Even though I'm exerting physical energy, it's rejuvenating. It's sacred to me. because it's where I do my best thinking. Oftentimes on these walks, I'll pray. I'll empty any negative thoughts. These walks are so stinking powerful to me. And I choose. Nobody's forcing me to go on these walks. I am choosing to go on them. And so it is a true place of solitude for me, these 3-mile walks. I think of another bigger example, and probably the biggest time I've ever chosen solitude was going to Hawaii by myself. Yes, I took a solo trip to Hawaii. And no, this was not before I was married. This was actually last year, 2024. Before that trip, everybody was asking me, why are you going to Hawaii for a third time in 1 year? A, and then B, why are you not taking Caitlin? Why are you going by yourself? And, there's a lot of confusion. Like, people thought that was just the weirdest thing. And I understand why. I kind of get it. But I'd always wanted to take it this solo trip. Like, it was on my bucket list. And I wanted to go to Hawaii with the sole intent to sort of clear my mind and to be creative. I'm a photographer, for those who don't know. And so I went to Hawaii all by myself with the sole intent to take pictures and to be creative and to go hiking and to do all these fun things. And I had a laundry list of different things I wanted to check off my list while I was there. Before that trip, though, it was really interesting. I was extremely nervous because I kept asking myself, well, who am I going to sit with on the plane ride? Like, the trip to Hawaii, the flight itself is like 10 hours. It's a long way. So I was thinking, like, who am I going to talk to? Am I just going to sit there in silence? When I get there, like, who am I going to share a meal with? And I started thinking, man, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? But I stayed committed to it. And that trip ended up being the most rewarding and freeing experiences of my life. One of them. I went on hikes alone. I took these awesome photos that I don't even share. It's not even a thing that, I want to post it on social media about it. I mean, I did post a few, but there are so many I haven't shared, but they mean so much to me. I just love capturing these moments and these stories and these locations. I got to walk the beaches. I prayed when I was in Hawaii. I journaled. I took a journal. I still have it. It's actually back here behind me, filled with notes and just thoughts during my trip to Hawaii. There was even a point I shared the gospel with somebody, just this random dude. Like, I don't know. It was one of those things where you felt like it was so silent around you. And there was nothing to fill the silence. It was just God, it was me, and it was his creation. And it was beautiful. And I chose to do that. Once again, nobody forced me to go out to Hawaii by myself. That's something I chose to do. I sought solitude in the island of Oahu. And my gosh, it was by far one of the most influential moments in my life. It changed me. And sometimes you have to do that for yourself. You have to get away physically to just hear yourself think, to collect ideas. And that's what I did there in Hawaii. And I came back and actually when I was there, this is a huge detail left out, but when I was there on one of the hikes, it was a beautiful, beautiful sunrise in Lanikai. If you know anything about Oahu, you know about Lanikai. But there was this pillbox hike, and I went to the top of the mountain, and it was like 6:30 a.m. Hawaii time, which means it would have been 12:30 Eastern time. And so I get a FaceTime from my wife, Caitlin, and she had tears in her eyes when I picked up. And I was like, what the heck's wrong? And she flipped the camera around, showed me that there were not one, but 2 pregnancy tests that were both positive. And that's where I learned that I was going to be a dad. So that whole trip, man, it was borderline spiritual for me. And I will never, ever regret it. Though people called me weird and why is he doing that? It's so awkward. Like, why would you do that for yourself? Go on a solo trip to Hawaii. It was awesome. And I don't regret it. But sometimes you don't have to go physically across the world to seek solitude. Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the coast, or in the hills, or in my case, Hawaii. There is nowhere, though, that a person can find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than his or her own mind." So what's he saying there? He's saying you don't have to go far. You don't have to go far to experience solitude, to experience peace in your own life and in your own mind. That rings true. You can go to Hawaii, yes. You can go to the Northeast Georgia mountains. You can go right down the street to, a local park or something. But the real retreat is learning to be still and to be quiet in your own mind. And that's a skill. Seeking solitude, practicing solitude is a skill that we must acquire. You see biblical characters all the time seeking solitude. I think about David before he became king. He retreated to the wilderness to write psalms, to pray to God, to be away from all the noise. Also, part of that had to do with the fact that he didn't want to get killed by Saul. That's a different thing. I think about Jesus. We talked about him last week, retreating to the garden to pray to his Father, to draw closer, to be one with his Father. I think about Moses going up on Mount Sinai. He was up there for like 40 days, 40 nights, and I can't even imagine what was going through his mind. He had all these Israelites waiting and awaiting his leadership, and what's he going to come down and say? And he goes up, he seeks solitude, and he comes back down the mountain with two stone tablets with the 10 Commandments. He was a changed man. And you see, that's what seeking solitude does. It changes you from the inside out. Solitude does not have to be some huge revolutionary event, okay? It could be as simple as going to your local coffee shop for 30 minutes and just sitting down in peace and sipping on some coffee. I know some of you enjoy that. My wife definitely does. Maybe it's waking up before everyone else in your house and just having, 20 minutes of quiet time with God. Maybe it's like me and you just walk through your neighborhood and enjoy nature, enjoy outside. But now more than ever, our souls, our minds crave solitude. I mean, we get hit with stimuli from everywhere. Even if you're driving down the road on the interstate, there's billboards, right? If you're on your phone, like notifications nonstop. There's a million different apps on my phone, like all of those. All of these things just distract us. And we need to seek solitude so that we can be creative and we can think clearly and decide ultimately who we want to be. So I have a very specific challenge for us this week. What I want you to do is find a place outside and sit for 45 minutes. Now, I know what you're saying already. Clark, it is too hot in Georgia right now to go outside and sit. But this is a challenge for a reason. You don't have to go in the middle of the day when it's 94 degrees and 100% humidity, by the way. You can wake up a little early, when the sun's starting to rise. Go sit outside. That's a great time. Or maybe it's in the evening when it's starting to cool down. It's closer to 70 degrees. But my point is, go find a spot outside. It could be anywhere. If you want to drive somewhere, I know where I'm going. I'll be driving up in the Northeast Georgia mountains. There's a river. I'm going to go sit beside it for 45 minutes. But what I want you to do is to leave your phone, no music, no podcast, no book. The only thing that I'm going to allow you to take is a pen and a notebook. And that's if you want to write down any thoughts that come to mind. Okay? So as you're sitting there, just let your mind wander. Look around, think, and pray, and meditate. Just sit there and relax a little bit. Feel how nice it is, how relaxing. And some of you may say, well, good gosh, this week of all weeks, you're going to tell me to do this? Like, I don't have the time. I guarantee you this week you can find 45 minutes. 45 minutes is all I'm asking. So write down any thoughts, write down any ideas that you might have, any feelings. And then if you're brave, what I want you to do is shoot me a DM, message me, send me a text. You could even post on our exclusive Facebook group, Gaining Ground, the things that you learned, the thoughts that you had, the feelings that you had as you're sitting there. So that pretty much wraps it up for this week. And once again, choose solitude. Give yourself some time to just think and breathe and relax. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, make sure to review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That is greatly appreciated. And remember, sometimes your best growth happens in quiet places. This has been the Weekly Gains Podcast. My name is Clark Gaines, and I'll see you next Monday.